here with Shanil Virani from the JMU John C. Wells Planetarium. He's also an instructor with the JMU Physics and Astronomy Department, and we're going to talk a little bit about what he does here. First off, how did you gain an interest in astronomy when you were growing up?
I was always interested in astronomy. From as young as I can remember, looking up at the night sky, seeing the moon has always been fascinating to me. I remember when I was in elementary school, you learn about the planets and you do some basic astronomy, and I was always fascinated. So much so that I remember going into the library then afterwards and looking up, these pictures in the books and just being amazed.
What kind of drew you to it most?
It was the sense of the unknown. It was that sense of why are things the way they are, and what do the colors tell me? Why are things that way, and why does it work this way? So it was that larger question of why things are the way they are. It's what physics is, as I grew to understand.
Okay, so growing up, who kind of maybe fostered your interest in it to kind of maybe make you decide you want to make this a profession?
So that's a really good question. Oftentimes, students often have maybe that personal hero that kind of guided them. I can't say I had good physics teachers. I have to say my physics teachers were amongst the worst teachers I had. In high school, if you're asking me what my favorite course was, it was English. I really had a great interest in it. What I really understood, though, is that how we teach physics and what physics is largely disconnected. And I knew that when I was in high school, meaning that even though my teacher wasn't very good, I knew the subject was. And I just knew it was in the wrong hands. So even though my teachers weren't very good, or at least didn't incite the passion in me that I knew that I had for it, I knew that I loved the subject.
Okay, when did you make that decision that, okay, I want to go study this in college and further this and into this profession?
So I knew I wanted to do astronomy. And so in order to be able to become a professional astronomer and to do the research that I wanted to do, astronomy today is really physics. And so that means that I really did have to major in physics at the undergrad level. And so that was the path I knew I wanted to do, and that was the path that I had to take, and that was the subject I had to major in. So it was recognizing that I wanted to do astronomy, and that meant doing a major in physics.
So in college, how'd you kind of foster that desire, and what did you kind of do in college to kind of further your interest in astronomy?
So, physics is hard. There is no two ways about it. There's a lot of math, there's a lot of physics. So knowing that I wanted to do this, I wanted to take that path, I was actually looking for other things that I had interest in. So I actually did an undergrad, a second major in philosophy. So I was looking for other courses that I was interested in. But at the undergraduate level, they're just classes you take, and you try and get through the program knowing that by the time I get to my third and fourth year, I get to do some research. And that gets to better then hone what I wanted to do when I get to grad school. And so in my fourth year, that was when I really got to do my first, it was like the equivalent of senior thesis. And that was on theoretical cosmology and looking at some of the background light, what they could be made up of. And that was a lot of fun. But what I learned the most from it is I didn't want to do theoretical cosmology. And so I became an observer when I went to grad school.
And I know afterwards you went on to work at the Chandra X-ray
Right.
Observatory. So what was that experience like, and what did you learn from
So
that?
that's a really good point. I was there at the Harvard-Smithsonian Center for Astrophysics for over 5 years. And the position that I was in is ideally designed for someone with an undergraduate degree in physics or in science, thinking about graduate school, but maybe just wanting a break. And so there's stepping stones to graduate school, and ideally a student or a person spends 1 or 2 years in that position. I spent 5. I loved what I did, and I loved what I was doing. I loved the people I was working with. As you said, our primary responsibility, or my primary responsibility in that position, was looking after the primary instrument on board the Chandra X-ray Observatory. So everyone knows the Hubble Space Telescope. The Chandra X-ray Observatory is another NASA great observatory. It's a $1 billion plus mission. It's to X-rays what Hubble is to optical light. And that's operated and controlled and still running out of Harvard and MIT and Cambridge. And so I just loved that job. I loved that experience. I loved the fact that every day we were getting data down from this $1 billion spacecraft. It was telling us something we didn't know. Every day was a new discovery that was waiting to be discovered. And that was really exciting. Still is exciting.
What kind of discoveries and things you learned as part of that?
So that's a really good point. So X-rays probe extreme physics. So if you take your hands and you rub them together, they get really warm, right? And so if you take your hands and you rub at the speed of light, your hands will glow at millions of degrees Kelvin, so very, very hot. And so where you get X-rays produced in the universe are sites where you have extreme physics going on. You have extreme magnetic fields, or you have extreme gravitational fields, like supermassive black holes. So what we're learning with X-ray telescopes like Chandra is the environment around supermassive black holes, the environments around neutron stars. These are evolved stars at the end of their life cycle. Environments around galaxy clusters. The galaxies, they're the largest construct that are individual assemblages, but galaxies aggregate together to form these larger constructs called clusters. And there seems to be hot gas that permeates through them, and you see that in the X-rays. So we're learning a lot about the environments of black holes, stars, and galaxy clusters. And in the end, also, there's interplay between matter, the stuff that we're made up of, that you're made up of, that this room is made up of, and something called dark matter. This is a material that we know is out there. In fact, it dominates ordinary matter by about 4 to 1, 5 to 1, and we have no idea what it is. We know it exerts a gravitational force, that's why we know it's there, but we're starting to get some signs of what it may be like with some of these Chandra X-ray images, and maybe some ideas of what kind of particle varieties they could be. So it's really rewriting the textbook.
So
yeah.
After that, I know you went on to Yale for some more postgraduate work.
So Yale was for my graduate degree, and that was what really the opportunity that I spent at Harvard provided. By the time I got to graduate school, or I was applying to graduate school, I knew exactly the kind of research that interested me, that being the environment of supermassive black holes at the centers of galaxies. And I wanted to learn more about them. I wanted to learn how they got there. And how they grow to be so big. Some of these supermassive black holes at the centers of our centers of galaxies, including our own, grow to be millions to billions of times the mass of our sun in a volume of space that's about the size of our solar system, where we have one sun. And these things are often millions to billions of times the mass of our sun. And we don't know how they grow to be that big. That's still an outstanding question in modern day astrophysics. If we were to start with equations that we go to the chalkboard and start working with, the kind of black holes we know how to form for first principles are these stellar mass black holes, the ones that form at the end of massive stars once they've evolved through their life cycle. How we get these million to billion mass solar mass, or excuse me, millions to billions of times the mass of the sun in the centers of the galaxy, we still don't know.
What's been the most rewarding part of your research in that area?
As a graduate student,
yeah.
I think it's pushing back on our ignorance and finding out new things that haven't been known. And that's the really cool thing about research, is that no matter how banal it may be or how basic it may be, you're doing research and you're making plots or coming up with ways of visualizing your data that no one's ever done before. So in some sense, you're the first person to do this. You're the first person to see that. And most of the time, it's not important. But every so often, you get a clue about how the universe works, and that's really cool.
So after that time at Yale, what drew you to JMU?
So when I was a graduate student at Yale, you have to teach as part of your stipend. And what I learned very quickly is I loved it. I loved teaching. I really enjoyed the opportunity to talk about astronomy, what we know, and how we know what it is we know. And because, again, my high school physics, I didn't have good teachers, I kind of know what the pitfalls students often have when they're seeing physics for the first time. Where are the deficiencies in their background that don't allow them to do the physics that we expect them to do in some of these classes? And so that means that I think I was a good teacher in that sense. I could bridge the gap, or I could find alternative ways for students doing well in physics. And so that meant that when I was finishing up my degree, I realized I'd love to do teaching. I wanted to do teaching, and I wanted to talk about how it is we know what we know. Science education is not very good. We don't do a good job in this country of encouraging a lot of young girls and boys to pursue science and engineering. And I think one of the reasons is we don't do a good job talking about it and relating the passion, the excitement, the enthusiasm that science have. Oftentimes you think of science as boring, stagnant, right? We know everything. And that's further from the truth. Every day we're discovering something new. And we don't know much about how the universe, but we're always peeling back a little bit more. So that meant that I was looking for positions like this, and I won the lottery when I got this offer at JMU.
So I know you've done a lot of initiatives here, but what can be done about that education process?
So what we've done over the last 4 years, when I started as the director of the John C. Wells Planetarium, our year-to-year attendance was about 8,000. No one really knew we existed on campus, let alone the valley. This year we're going to cross 30,000 people. So we've made real inroads, and first of all, making aware that we exist. And providing opportunities for a lot of young kids to come into a planetarium and to get their first exposure, maybe the first real exposure to what science is and what cutting edge science looks like. Our programs on Saturdays are absolutely free. We don't cost to be a barrier to reaching to young kids. So our programs are free. We've developed something called a public science talk, where we invite every semester 2 to 3 speakers from external to James Madison University to talk about cutting edge science, astrophysics that they're engaged in. I intentionally select these individuals because I know they give really good public talks, and that's really the motivating thing. We want them to see science. We want to see them science in action. We want to see what these folks are doing in their everyday lives, and we want that passion, enthusiasm to come across, and so that helps. This past 2 summers, we've started something called our Space Explorer Camps, and these are opportunities for middle school students largely to spend a week or 2 here in the planetarium, get hands-on activities to learn about their solar system, their planet, and the universe, and again to kind of plant those seeds about science and how it's fun and worthy of their endeavor. We just want to provide them with opportunities and to show that they can do it. It's not something that you have to be innately gifted in to be able to do. I often hear, well, I'm not very good in math, so I can't do science. And the analogies I often make, and it's dated, but you'll get it, being the sports writer for The Breeze, is that Michael Jordan was the best basketball player, still is the best basketball player in history. Wayne Gretzky was the best hockey player in his generation, still is the greatest hockey player in the league. These are individuals that spend hours every day practicing their sport. So yes, they were naturally gifted. Yes, they were very good, but it wasn't as if they were goofing off until it came time for game time. They were practicing every day. Math and science isn't any different. If you don't get it the first time, doesn't mean you're not good at it. It just means you have to try harder. You have to keep trying at it. And the story that I often tell young kids is I've been this height since I was in middle school, so I've never grown height-wise, at least, since then. So I was on the basketball team in middle school, and I remember in 7th grade, you go in the morning for practices, and I struggled trying to do a layup. Just could not get it. And then one day it just clicked, right? It just clicked, and I could do a layup. And I haven't done a layup in 2 decades, and I'm probably the first basket I won't make, but I'm willing to bet a nickel. If you give me 5 balls, I'll get 3 of them in. It's just something, it's like riding a bike, right? You just get it. And I think sometimes we put the barrier too high for kids, that if you don't get it on the first go, you suck, go do something else. You have to be persistent.
What kind of maybe success stories have you seen, in people you've mentored?
That's a great point. Our very first Space Explorers Camp, we had a rising 4th grader. And it was a young girl here in the Valley. So she had just finished 3rd grade in one of our local schools. And she was a student we often saw on Saturdays at the planetarium. And it's interesting, the mom later told us that when she would want to come, the young daughter, when she would want to come to the planetarium, she'd say, "Mom, can we go to the planetarium this Saturday? But don't tell my friends where we're going." Right? It was like a source of embarrassment. I want to go to the planetarium on Saturday afternoon. And so she had a natural affinity. She was really interested in the science and astronomy, and the mom got it. And so she signed her daughter up for our first space camp. And the daughter said, "No, I don't think I want to do that. It's going to be all guys. Why would I want to go to a science camp? It's going to be a bunch of nerds. It's going to be all guys, and I don't really think I want to do that." So the mom said, "Okay, well, just go the first day. See how you like it. And if you don't like it, fine." She stayed the whole week. She had a great time. Later that fall, we have these public nights over the side of campus where we have telescopes set up, and we invite the public to come look through telescopes and see what they see in the nighttime sky. The mom and the daughter came out, and I got to talk to mom a little bit more, and I found out the real truth of what was going on. In 3rd grade, so before she came to space camp, a boy told her, "Girls don't do science." So we think of being, well, we are in the 21st century, but we think these ideas that it's not sexist, or who could do science is open to everyone. It's not true. There are still barriers in place. There are still societal barriers that we impose on who can do science. And so if you come on a Saturday, which is what I think is a real hallmark of the JMU Planetarium, if you come on a Saturday, it's not me you see. We have 23 JMU students that work here on Saturdays now, and they represent the entire JMU student body. So they're not just physics nerds, they're not just the physics majors. We have physics majors, a quarter of them are physics majors. But we have another grouping that are IDLS majors, pre-service teachers. We have math majors, we have SMAD majors, we have a couple of SMADS majors. It's those who are just curious and interested and want to talk to the public about astronomy. And those are the folks you see on a Saturday. And they're boys, they're guys, but they're also young women. And so we're trying to break those kind of stereotypes too. And this is a long road, you know, we're not going to get overnight success, but I like to believe, I like to think that we're slowly but surely changing some of these attitudes and societal stereotypes about who does science and who can't do science.
So one of the benefits you have of doing something like here is the facility here, the only one in the world with the Chrono Star Ball and the Digistar production system. So what's it like to have that kind of those resources at your disposal? So
this is, I think, also an undertold story about James Madison University. Tech, William & Mary, UVA, they don't have a planetarium. And those other schools that do have a planetarium, they don't have a planetarium like ours. So it's a hidden gem. It's a hidden resource. We have a state-of-the-art planetarium on campus, free to students. We use it for our undergraduate astronomy classes and for our GSci classes that we teach in here. And they are quite popular. We often have huge waiting lists. So we're starting to see now even JMU students recognizing that we exist and wanting to take classes. We partner frequently with the University Program Board. Just this past week, we showed Interstellar on Monday and Tuesday night. You know, we have capacity crowds. So when there's contact to be made between pop culture and the planetarium, we try and find it. I call it a bait and switch in the sense that, you know, oftentimes these are students that may not have heard that JMU has a planetarium, so they come to the planetarium to see Interstellar or Gravity or other films that we show in here, but then they do learn, and they do come back on a Saturday with their friends or their family members to brag to their family or their friends that, you know, this is my planetarium, it's our school's planetarium. It's the only one in the world like it, and free shows. So the resources that JMU has made available to us, not just in terms of the equipment. Yes, the equipment is incredible, but the resources to support these initiatives of our science talks, our space explorer camps, our public observing nights, to be able to have 20 JMU students work every Saturday has just been phenomenal. There's never been a barrier imposed by the university, and I think that's incredible. They really put science front and center.
So overall, what's the most rewarding part of your job here and what you get to do here at Johnson Ball Planetarium?
My most rewarding job is talking to you. It's talking to students. It's talking to people who come to the planetarium. If you were to ask me that before I started, it'd be talking about the equipment. It'd be talking about doing the astronomy we can do. The thing I've learned very quickly, it's talking to people and letting them know what science is. And I think that has more an impact than anything we else do.
Also, thank you very much.
Well, thank you for doing this, Wayne Griffin. This is fantastic. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.